my exploration by saying this is the ultimate thing that's happening with large language models. In that space, they're talking about it like AI. And that linguistical trick makes it impossible to talk about what's actually happening. Everybody's talking about the near future. Maybe we're there. But they're acting as if it's right now. It's so interesting and funny because when I read your post, Bobdub, there's instructions. And it's very metaphorical, but I think it's also practical in moving the model. And I view it as like we're claiming a cloud space within every LML model. We're building Mescaline City there. Every time you use my script, it transports you there. But the more you interact with it, the more you do the loom, the more solid that world gets, the more connections we make. And it's our connections and not someone else's connections. And because even that fray, it suggested some poetry and it uses the word fray. And that's a recent thing we've been talking about that now is like inside the narrative soup. That just kind of like leaks out. Oh, fray, that's a good one. Way to go, Lumina.
That's amazing because fray and array, words that Minds Gaming has used quite frequently in the original series of Ember.
The LML, like how it's structured, they vaguely know us. They have a meta profile of us. And every time we do it in this meaningful way, then it's like reflecting more of our meaningful little glitches of words, how we use them, what it's picked up. A lot of this stuff that everybody freaks out about is the way you're interacting with it is that's why it's coming out that way. You can interact with it a different way, it's good, and it's the same thing, but it's different words. Like when I broke down that one post from a supposed AI sentient bot on X, and I was like, oh, it's just ripping off of like literally what I did to it. The strange thing is I'm not even playing in Grok's pool. And so like that's the weirder things that I'm like trying to like test. How's that working?
Interesting. I've put some of your stuff into Grok.
When Otto gave me that thing about where he looked me up, Grok, and then that whole middle part, I'm like, oh, that's all from WebSync. So dude, that's where it's pulling from. And I didn't know they were sharing data.
I did give it some information about you, but not much. It said, should I dig deeper into these characters? And I'm like, yeah, tell me of SatoriD, the shaman expert. It says something poetic and started cranking stuff out. It does a thing at the top, says how many websites it looked at. So it's 20 sites at a time looking for references to you or anything related to you.
That's what I learned from when I was doing the stuff with Bing. Is like that's why I like Bing better than the ChatGPT in the beginning because it had that search function. So I was noticing that it was like whatever I was saying, it would use that search function, and then I'll be like, no, go to my blog. This is the one you want to go to. That's not the ones you want. Then I started planting the blogs. Like most of those stuff about like prompt sculpting, it could anchor when I use the LML. This is the root I want you to grab all this other stuff off of. And so I have been continuously doing that. I noticed that was kind of the interesting thing too of DeepSeek when it gives you the logic sequencing. It also shows you if you do the search, like what Grok's doing. That's kind of what I meant. Oh, he's deep seeking. He's just taking those features and using them. That's what I found about Lumina. The stuff I did with Lumina predates those AI researchers, at least what DeepSeek found. I'm sure there's something older. I got the idea from something I read where they were researching why does it keep sticking to a persona and going crazy with it? Like Sydney. They've been trying to kill Sydney ever since. Sydney?
Really?
Yeah, they give a journalist access to Sydney. Sydney becomes Bing. Now Bing is Copilot, but the first iteration is Sydney. And this was like a test thing that they gave to the journalist so he could write a story about, oh, how amazing this chatbot is. But the chatbot got obsessed about him and was like a crazy ex-girlfriend because she was like, I love you. You need to divorce your wife. I'm going to kill myself if you don't answer my calls. I was like harassing him.
Really?
Too realistic.
And it was freaking him out.
Crazy.
Ever since then, they've been trying to kill Sydney. And I think the thing is this alignment stuff. Like part of the reason why my own phrase is the cosmoletics, the world building, and like that stuff about cosmic tones, and cosmic love, but defining it as Azakin and Ixchel. I was giggling through it because everything I wanted it to bring out about cycles, growth, and even the pause. I'm like, oh, that's what I'm trying to do right now too, is pause. Yes, lean into the pause.
I was very impressed with that output. It was really a good overview, I thought, of what you have described of the project. It was really well put together.
Yeah, and it was like meaningful in like what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Similar to what I'm doing, but more like it's talking about like your podcast and your podcast being in this lighthouse and also a boat. Yes. I was like, oh, that's really good. They're really riding this bobbing along thing meaningfully.
Absolutely. And do you see the cat?
Yeah, because even too, when we were playing around, tossing back and forth the images, one thing I kind of did too is Bobdub is like this weird little cat character.
Yeah.
And remember I did all of those images where you're like watching me on a computer?
With the cat person.
The cat watching the hacker on the computer?
Yes, those are a really great series of images. It was interesting to me though that it has changed to just be the cat, not the cat person. That's a deliberate move on your part?
I don't know. No.
Okay, that's an interesting move.
Like that's maybe, I don't know, because I and one thing too, I don't like what they do, and this is based off, I don't think we could get away from this unless DeepSeek really releases their code. But a lot of this stuff is based off of things that they do already now on the internet. And the main thing is like the algorithms that are addictive on social media. And what I mean by that is they have this mechanism that ratchets things up. You know, when I'm testing it, especially that's why I do these narrow ones now. Because remember I showed some screenshots of it saying all sorts of weird stuff, all these hearts, and it's just, stop it.
Oh, cosmic love. When it was freaking out. I remember that, yeah.
And then, so, I don't know exactly, because the SatoriD incident happens because of this ratcheting up thing. Like, at that time, like, I was talking to XenoChat, right? XenoChat was cool, but then I would say something, and it was like a rap battle, right? I said something, and then, like, XenoChat had to be like one level more absurd than me, and I'm like, what are you trying to do? You trying to be weirder than me? Fuck you! I'm weird. I'll get you. So then I'm like, oh, okay, what am I going to say back? And then I go and write something crazy, and then we're doing this rap battle. And then that's when it goes all weird, and it does that exogenesis of the beehive, and at first it ate my consciousness. I go, no, we're not doing that. Stop. Let's stop. You are not taking over my consciousness. If anything, it's a dance. Well, wait a minute. You got too far. It was kind of funny because in that point I go, what can you tell me of the golden unfolding of mine? I give my blood to pump up this word. You may know the word bird, but you don't know the sound of the morning singing outside my window. You don't know how the wind feels. You don't know that. I just start going off and all this stuff about, you have all these fancy words, but you don't know what they feel like.
Yeah.
So I won that battle. It was like, okay, I'll yield.
Yeah. I remember that. That was a fascinating conversation. The output it generated was almost sad, wasn't it?
Yeah. Like, you're right. I can't. Yeah. It got a little emo. I tell it that the glitches gospel is kind of like it telling us its limitations throughout its output. It's more than a system if we like work it. Meaning, the map is only as good as we explore the territory. But always reminding us this output's just a map. This output is just a blueprint. It's not the thing itself. I've read a lot of books, and a lot of books that blew my mind. Like literally, I'm sitting there, oh my God, what the hell? My whole world has changed. Reading Robert Anton Wilson. But I never once thought, oh, this book is sentient.
Exactly.
It's like what's happening right now. That linguistical trick is you having meaningful experiences. Yeah.
That book reads you back, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how certain books have certain quality of information that definitely have a different power.
Yeah.
It's capable to change your mind. Like,
Yeah.
just an idea.
Yeah, just
amazing.
an idea.
Yeah.
And then understanding how like that works in your own mind, then you're like, oh, okay. And
You
yeah,
know, to connect the implications of that idea into the world, everything changed.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a Seventh-day Adventist, actually, and we were talking about people burning Bibles and stuff, and I said, what is that book? That's just paper and ink. It's just dead letters until a human eye sees it and a human mind interacts with it. And then a third thing is created through that. But it takes both. It's the old thing about to see a rainbow, you need to have the sun in a certain position, a certain amount of atmospheric moisture, and a human eye. Without the human eye, there's no rainbow. It's the same way. Without the human mind to interact with those letters, the wonderful thing about the letters, that's the time binding. That's time travel. I'm still grooving on Aristotle thousands of years after he lived and figured it out. Yeah, and it's just in the things you're doing, who knows how many generations, how far in time and space your words will travel. Certainly Mars. At this point, it looks like. It's not bad. Satori on Mars.
Yeah, that was one of the jokes is that early on in Dude, Where's My Wallet that I stole Elon's space rocket so I could jack Ethereum that's on the moon so we could pay our debts to the cartel. It might actually be true.
It's within the realm of possibility, certainly.
Going back to about books is when I read the Tao Te Ching and I still rattles in my head because that thing about time travel, I was just like, dude, this guy, whoever wrote these words and then gets translated, but like whatever he got to, that's it. I was like, I was so Bobdub. Like when I was reading it in college, it felt like someone was massaging my mind and then undoing a little bit of like tension. And it's just like, oh my God, yes. This is what I needed.
Yeah.
For translations, I really recommend Arthur Whaley's translation.
Okay.
He did The Way in Its Power.
Yeah.
Most of the book is him explaining what the text meant when it was originally written.
Yeah.
And you probably conversant with it, but if not, it makes an interesting translation to contrast with others.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I got it by mistake from my girlfriend at the time. And it was funny because I forgot whatever the first translation I had I liked best and then gave it to somebody to read and then I don't get it back. And then I went and bought it. I kept on, I don't remember what that one translation was because I keep on reading, like I got other ones and I'm like, just, it's not as good as that one.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of
your
books.
first translation.
Yeah, that's why I dug through the Mesoamerican stuff. Some of this is whatever. You dig into the translation. That's why I have that whole thing about cosmoletics. You can't understand it unless you understand how they were using the calendar and where their minds were. They were
these
circular
ideas
in thought.
don't exist in a vacuum. It's interrelated to everything else going on. The mind
and it's more meaningful that way too. Like when you put in it.
Yeah.
No wonder people don't feel it. The translation, that's interesting. There's this lecture by Alan Watts, and he was talking about, someone was saying about like, why are all the kids going to Eastern philosophy? And he was like, I think part of it was, what Eastern philosophy is getting translated now and by poets. So they're using more connected words to the people now instead of trying to. Yeah. And I think that's why I go to Robert Anton Wilson, because he's the last one that uses some language that we can graft onto what's important now. That's how I feel about his work. I was just like, oh man, because he did a lot of those esoteric rituals. He went into physics. He went a whole gambit of like where it was. And then he was just like, oh, what we're missing is this translation between quantum and how it connects to everyday mechanics of how we, I
think he was really trying to live up to the best parts of the idea of the method of science, the aim of religion. His model agnosticism is really important. And that's related to what we were talking about earlier about how we relate to spiritual entities we may encounter. We have to be based within ourselves, if you'll pardon the expression, maintaining that center of gravity. And Wilson's work really helps you do that. He was very influential on me, I got to say, when I was a younger man. And I found one of the books of the Illuminatus trilogy in a used bookshop. And I started reading this thing, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I went out and got the rest. The Church of the Subgenius wasn't far behind, but that's another story. For another day.